We're good? Good morning, Fellowship of Faith. Welcome this Sunday. I'm Tina Gaddini.
And I'm Justin Johnson.
And we just want to say we're glad that you're worshiping with us.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Hey, Justin and I were looking, and on Facebook alone, we have 1.1 thousand views. Is that how I say it? 1,100?
Yeah,
1,000. Oh my gosh. I'm an accountant. I deal with numbers, and
But it says 1.1K. So
yeah.
I understand what the K
So
means.
good job, you guys, sharing us and getting us out there. I've noticed the times that I've shared our live stream, I will see people pop up, like, watching it that I never expected, like parents of friends of friends. And it's like, what?
Whoa.
So you guys, we are reaching people, and it's really, really exciting.
Keep the love going. Keep
Yes.
sharing. Keep sharing.
Share and like. Also do it with our YouTube and Spotify.
Yep,
Dave's sermons are on Spotify. Very cool. So I have a funny story.
Oh, boy.
Last week, Dave and I were talking to a couple that are pretty new to church, and they were had a bunch of questions. And Dave mentioned our show, the pregame, the postgame, and they mentioned your name, Justin. And this couple said, "Oh, is that the guy with the beard?" And I promptly said no, and Dave promptly said yes. And we looked at each other, so I had to come back and look. And you do have a beard.
I do. It takes
He has
a lot
a
of
be-
work to get it this pretty.
Yeah, is it soft?
It's very
I'm not going to touch it.
Why not?
Because that's weird.
Soft.
Oh, see,
Totally.
very nice. Do you use oil?
I do not.
Okay.
It's all natural.
There we go. You're a good-looking guy.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You made my day. Smiles all around.
Gosh. Oh, we're off to a start. Hey, I want to let you guys know that we have communion today. So if you want to join with us in communion, get some bread, some wine, some crackers, some juice.
Break out those wheat thins, Dad.
Yep. And last week I mentioned that there was a guy who fasts before communion.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And I was going to try to do that. And I had these visions in my mind all week. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to show you my empty cup. And I'm so proud of myself. And you know what happened? God's like, that's all about vanity. That's all about what I want. It's not about my spiritual growth. And so this morning when I got up, David made breakfast. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do that. And he's like, oh. So I'm like, okay, I have to eat breakfast. And then I get to church, and there's a box of donuts. Now, I think they were a week old because they were pretty bad. But I had this little piece of a donut. And then somebody brought cake. So I feel like my entire morning has been sabotaged.
They heard your plan and they wanted to.
But I think it's more God being, when you decide to fast before communion, we want it to be like a private, go into your prayer closet.
Right.
You know, I don't need to tell the world. So.
I fasted.
You did. Well, you always
every
fast.
morning.
Justin. So, please have communion with us. What else did I want to say? Let us know that you're here. So either give us a shout out on the Facebook stream, or you can text here to 815-240-0607.
And also let us know where you're watching from as well.
Yes.
That first couple weeks is kind of cool to see how we're kind of painting.
We have something like 18 states and 4 different countries.
That is insane. So
It's
hello
really
to all
exciting.
those people as
Yes,
well.
we're so glad you're with us. What are we at? This week, we're in the week 3 of the songs, and Dave is talking about Isaiah 50. And one of the things that he said about it is, who is more stubborn, you or God? And I love this passage.
Me.
I'm pretty stubborn too. There's a guy in first grade that turned me in for cheating when I wasn't cheating, and I haven't talked to him this day. First grade.
First grade, just wrote him off.
grade.
Oh man.
So anyway, I looked up Isaiah 50, and there's a passage that I love, and then I looked at Dave's sermon notes that he gave me this morning, and I don't know if he's going to talk about it in the same way that I would talk. So I'm excited to hear what he says.
So he gave you a sneak peek, finally.
Well,
I mean, that's a sneak peek.
it's
That's
a sneak.
the
I got it
notes.
like 30 seconds ago. 30 seconds
still,
before we went on.
That is still a sneak peek, in my opinion. So we're getting somewhere to getting
A
you
little
guys
bit.
sneak peeks.
A little bit.
So stay tuned.
Yes. Hey, I have some exciting news, and I'm not going to talk about it now because it's so exciting that I don't want to take away from the service. So you guys need to stick around after the service for the post-game show.
I like
I'm
it.
not.
Dangle the carrot. I like that.
I used to hate that on radio stations.
Well, same, because you never
but now I
stay.
get to do it, and it's kind of
Now-
fun.
Exactly. Now you guys get to stay. And
Anyway, I'm not sure if it's information that I can give out, but I'm going to anyway. So stick around for the after service. Looks like the band is on stage. We've got 30 seconds. What else do we want to say? I heard the band worshiping,
Oh,
practicing this morning. You guys.
They were so great. When I pulled in this morning, I could hear them on the outside of the
Oh,
walls.
we pulled in the
So,
parking lot
yeah.
and got out of the car, and Dave's like, oh, I can hear the bass. It's going to be a good
it's gonna be a
Sunday.
good service. So
gonna
I
great.
hope you guys enjoy.
Yep.
Jam out with us.
I'll take Steve's words. Welcome to worship.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FOF. Let's stand and sing.
Good morning, everyone. Guys, good to see you today. Welcome to March, and it actually feels like April. When does this ever happen? Well, like in this latitude level. Glad you could join us today, whether you're on live stream or here in person today. Just great spending the morning with you. And those of you who don't know me, maybe you're with us for the first time or relatively new. My name's David Gadini, pastor here at Fellowship of Faith. And through this season that Christians called Lent, we're doing this series of meditations, if you will, on checking our own faith against where God is trying to lead us. And we're going through the prophet Isaiah, looking at, well, fundamentally, how God works in this world. I asked this last week, but I do want to ask it again. Do you ever wonder, like, how God actually works? Like, we believe he's there. We get glimpses at times. We have the history and the story of what's come before us. But so often, I think, in the midst of life, we struggle with, like, how is he actually working in this, or around this, or under this, or whatever preposition you want to use in relationship to this. You know what I mean? You ever been there on that question? This is a question that Isaiah wrestles with deeply. And what we see from this prophet Isaiah is that God works through this something or someone that Isaiah calls the servant. A servant of God, a servant who acts on God's behalf. And through the prophecy of Isaiah, there are 5 poems, or what are typically called 5 songs about this servant, each giving a certain snapshot, if you will, about this servant and how God works, but fundamentally reflecting who God is. And so we're wading through these together. So far, we've seen 2 of these pictures, or 2 of these songs. We've seen that this servant is someone who is just doused with the Spirit of God, and who's bringing justice into this world, setting wrongs right in this world on behalf of God, but not in the way that so many people go about that business. Because when this servant does it, he will not, to use Isaiah's language, snuff smoldering wicks or break fragile reeds. It's not by storming and trampling over other people that he brings justice, but with a certain odd and even paradoxical gentleness, sensitivity, even against his enemies. And so we see this picture of how God works. Last week, we saw that the servant is God's secret weapon, completely unexpected, and yet absolutely effective compared to a brightened sword hidden in the hand, a polished arrow hidden in the quiver. That the servant is one that you would never see coming. But through this servant, God is going to do something amazing. Which leads us to today. It's a third picture of this servant, a third picture of how God works. And I want to show it to you today, but even though we're going to put it on the screens in-house and at home you'll have it for a minute or two, I encourage you to open to it and look at it and follow along, because I want you to continue to kind of like wrestle in this song to see what this servant is like. So let me read it to you, but please follow along. From Isaiah 50. Lord Yahweh has given me an instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. He wakens me morning by morning, wakens me early. He wakens me early, and he wakens my ear to listen like one being taught. The Lord Yahweh has opened my ears, and I have not been rebellious. I have not drawn back. I offer my back to those who beat me, my cheeks to those who pulled out my beard. I did not hide my face from mocking and spitting. Because the Lord Yahweh helps me, I will not be disgraced. Therefore, have I set my face like flint and I know I will not be put to shame. He who vindicates me is near. Who then will bring any charge against me? The servant asks. Let us face each other. Who is my accuser? Let him confront me. It is the Lord Yahweh who helps me. Who is he that condemns me? They will all wear out like a garment. The moths will eat them up. Let's unpack. So the struggle in this part of Isaiah, really from chapter 40 on, is that Israel feels abandoned by God. Have you ever felt abandoned by God? It's been a long heart cry of the people of God since the time of Cain. The people of Israel feel abandoned by God. But God is communicating back, I have not abandoned you. And Israel speaks as though it's God who did the abandoning. But in contrast to this, God seems to be saying, I am doing everything to try to reach out to you, to communicate to you, to show myself to you, but you're just not listening. Have you ever had moments like these, where both parties, you and someone else, or maybe just watching it from afar, they're like talking past each other in the night? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a married couple. And I think there's no mistake that one of the big points of imagery that the Old Testament uses, the New Testament as well, for our relationship with God is a married couple. It reminds me of a married couple where one of the spouses, they've been so wounded and so much resentment has built up, whether justified or not, that whatever the other person now does, it fundamentally doesn't matter anymore because internally their mind is already made up. Guys, sadly, I see this all the time, and so many of you have probably suffered through this, where, yeah, the person might say, well, let's work on the marriage, let's go to counseling, let's do something. But it's really just kind of lip service as a last fleeting essence of the relationship because inside it's already been determined. And no matter what happens, that person is resolute and set. You could even say stubborn in the decision that they have already internally decided. Some of you have been in relationships like this. Some of you have been in marriages like this. Some of you have been on the receiving end. That no matter what you do, the decision by the other person is already set. Some of you have been on the giving end of this. That the resentment and wounds have built up so much that no matter what the other person does, the destiny is now set. And so, in these chapters preceding this passage in Isaiah, you see God almost desperately trying to speak to the people of Israel who feel abandoned, who are wounded, who have resentment that may have built up a sense of resignation or finality. And it uses all kinds of ways to try to describe this. He goes, well, so you think that we're married? Well, then show me the divorce certificate. Show me the divorce certificate, because I tell you, I have not divorced you. You don't have it. He says things like, do you think that I've sold you into debt slavery, handed you over to the creditors? Even if it looks that way, I have bought you back. Can't you see it? He describes himself to a mother. Can a mother abandon his child, and goes so far to say, even if a mother could abandon their child, I will not abandon you. And with image after image and message after message, Isaiah is speaking the word of God back to this people who's become stubborn. Stubborn in their wounds and resignation towards a God that they feel abandoned by. I love Isaiah's imagery for this. You can check this out in chapter 48. He'll describe people like this. As people who have neck sinews. We need to use the term neck sinew more in our life. We just need to use the term sinew more in our life. But the sinews of your neck, just flex your neck here for a minute. Get that going. You feel those sinews there? Whose neck sinews are like iron. Isaiah will say, they are so tight, so taut, so strong. You are not going to move this head from the direction to which it is set. He goes further and he says that their foreheads are like bronze. All right? Have you ever been head-butted before? It is an overrated experience. Imagine a forehead like bronze. Have you ever been in a relationship with someone before whose forehead was like bronze? Maybe not the metal of choice that you would naturally run to, but the image is clear. This person is set, resolute, stubborn in what they believe and in the decision that they have internally set. And what I love is how this picture of this servant talks about how God is stubborn too. Do you see that in the top of the second paragraph? Therefore, I have set my face like flint. You are like bronze, I am like flint. Let's go at it, baby. Right? But unlike the people of Israel, who are stubborn in their refusal to reconcile with God or to believe God or to dream of a future with God, the servant is stubborn in a different way. Because the servant is resolute on seeing that God's plan is brought to completion, and God's plan is resolution and reconciliation with you. That as stubborn as you are to fight against God, that is as stubborn as I am, God says. The servant says, I am in my promise and plan to be reconciled with you. If only every relationship in this world that's marked by wound and resentment was also marked by people who were stubborn to make it work and find reconciliation with each other. But so often we feel like we're beating our heads or having our heads beaten upon by someone with iron-like necks and bronze-like foreheads in a different way. And the difference seems to be this, that unlike people who have accumulated such a history of wounds and resentment, the servant lets himself be mocked and abused because God will let himself be falsely accused. Look at some of the language. I know I will not be put to shame. Second paragraph, see it? And yet, everything he says that off of is by things that we would precisely say are literally putting him to shame. The Lord, in paragraph 1, has opened my ears. And I've not been rebellious. I have not set my forehead like bronze or my neck like iron. I've not drawn back. No, instead I've done something different, the servant says. I've offered my back to those who beat me, my cheeks to those who pulled out my beard. God's servant says, I did not hide my face from mocking and spitting, because the servant, like God, is one who will let himself be mocked, shamed, and abused by those he's in a relationship with. And despite it, sets his face like flint in commitment to carry through the plan and purpose and promise of God's desire to reconcile with the people Israel and with you. You know, here it would seem that this servant is Isaiah, speaking as one on behalf of Israel, and yet to Israel on behalf of God. But as Teen and Justin put it last week, and I loved it in their post game, who is the servant? Is it Israel? Yes. Is it Isaiah? Yes. Is it Jesus? Yes, because it's all a reflection of the character and nature of God. Isaiah is speaking on behalf of what Israel is supposed to be, as a prophet in whom the footsteps of that Jesus will follow, all as a reflection of God. To think for a moment that God is more stubborn than you. In this day and age, we like to mock God, don't we? It's become fashionable, especially for Christians, to pull on God's beard, to beat his back, to mock, and even spit. Let me explain. I'm angry with God. I'm disappointed by God. I feel abandoned by God. Why didn't God? How come, God? How could you, God? You get the train of thought here, don't you? We love to position ourselves with a certain sense of righteous indignation. There's just no better way of putting it. A bit of righteous indignation, setting ourselves and our foreheads like bronze over against God, crossing our arms, expecting him to justify himself to us, and like an angry, pouting child, standing stubbornly against him until he makes right by us. It is the standoff of a strong-willed child and parent since time memorial. And we find ourselves so intellectual, so sophisticated, so wise, and we take pride even in the stance we take before God, when truly all it often is a stubborn heart, fueled by internal wounds and resentments that we've never dealt with. No, but not God. No, God is stubborn in a very different sort of way. And no matter how much you pull on his beard or beat his back or mock and spit, God is resolute in reconciling with you. And all of this paves the way for what we see in Jesus, manifesting the way of God. There's this one little line I want to share with you. It comes out of Luke 9, verse 51. It's almost a throwaway line if you're reading the gospel through, and yet in it is an allusion to the nature of this servant, and more is the pivot point of what this gospel is about. In the middle of the gospel, it says, as the time approached for him, Jesus, to be taken up into heaven, preceded by nailed to a cross, what did Jesus do? He set out for Jerusalem. But look at how he did it. resolutely. Because as gentle as the images of Jesus are, that we might have, Jesus had a stubborn side. Because God has a stubborn side. And that stubborn side is doing whatever it takes, enduring whatever it takes, going wherever it takes to see through God's dream of being reconciled to you. So off to Jerusalem, off to the cross. His followers tried to warn him. His disciples tried to dissuade him. Even Pharisees came to him and said, they're looking for you there. But resolutely he set out. Because that's God's commitment to his promise to you. Right after, and you have to read this, do it on your own, the next couple of verses, it talks about how even as he's setting out for Jerusalem, they are, shall I say, metaphorically beating his back and pulling his beard. They are not receiving him, they are rejecting him. And the disciples turn to him and ask that question that we all want to ask God and be able to carry out at times. Lord, should we call down fire from heaven on them? Look at the next thing that Jesus has to say. But he turns and he rebukes them. He looks them in the face and he rebukes them. And he said, you don't know what kind of spirit you're of. You bronze-headed, iron-necked mule. And I love this line. Look, guys, and if you want to know what God's about in one sentence, this last one is it. For the Son of Man, that's Jesus, okay? For the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. God did not come to destroy your life, but to save it. God does not come to snuff your smoldering wick or break your reed. No, God is not resolute in rejecting you, in writing you off. No, he is resolute in saving you and finding that relationship with you and the process. Welcome to the servant. Welcome to Jesus, and welcome to the way of God. See, the question, if you will, of Isaiah is, will you have a face like flint or a forehead like bronze? Which one are you going to have? Because your decision in those internal places is going to make all the difference in how you see God, relate to God, interact with God, and your future with God. It will make all the difference in whether you spend your remaining days like a couple who are married in name only, but whose relationship is marked by ignoring each other, resenting each other, resisting each other, and pulling out each other's beards. Yeah, ladies too. Or whether your relationship with God will be moving towards the joy, the reconciliation, the intimacy, and the goodness that he so desperately wants to have with you. One more line that tail ends this third servant song. Who among you fears Yahweh and obeys the word of his servant? Who? Let him who walks in the dark, who has no light, trust in the name of Yahweh and rely on his God. Wherever you are in that relationship with God, your attitude towards God, and the condition of your head and your neck. Let him who walks even in the dark, who has no light, no hope, let even that one trust in the name of Yahweh and rely on his God. Ask yourself that question today. Will I fear Yahweh and obey the word of his servant? There's a song we're going to sing that's just about how holy God is, how different he is than us in so many ways, that even though we reflect his image, we often reflect it in an inverted or distorted way. How different his stubbornness is than our own. And maybe as we just sing this song together today, it's a time of stepping towards reconciliation with him, or trusting in him, or fearing him, or obeying him, or softening the tension in the neck and massaging out some of the bronze to a renewed relationship with him. So I'm going to invite you to rise.
Well, I can't comprehend your infinitely beautiful and perfect love. Oh, I've dreamed dreams of majesty as brilliant as a billion stars, but they're never bright enough after all. You are
Hey guys, why don't you go ahead and have a seat? You know her well, even though we haven't seen her in a couple of weeks on the screen, but good news for you in person. You get to see her live today. Gwen Johnson, our Next Gen Director, is coming up, and she's going to be sharing a few things with you this morning. Let's welcome Gwen, all right? Hello.
Good morning.
All right, long time no see, at least as an active part of the production side of this, and much to my mom's dismay, I know, and so many other people, but...
Yeah, hopefully I'll be back soon doing magic, as I've been told. That's what I apparently do.
Our resident sorcerer, all right, all right. You know, Gwen and I have been talking a lot these past few weeks about faith training. And Gwen, those of you who don't know, oversees what's known as the Rock Children's Ministry, Boulder Student Ministry, basically all ministry here targeting infancy through 12th grade, and truth be told, even into our college years a little bit. And I've been talking about a lot about what faith training looks like for kids. Sunday mornings, I've been talking to you directly. Those of you who are adult age, you know, even high school and older, whatever it might be. But a lot of you might not realize that just as we have a faith check guide for you, Gwen has developed some pretty incredible ones for our children and student ministry population. And would you just share some things and some highlights and just take it and roll? Yeah.
Okay, so basically I started thinking, we've been doing this for years. If you've been at FOF, we have our faith check questions, and they're great for us as adults, but really some of them aren't very appropriate for younger kids. And we've never really talked about the fact that if we're checking our faiths, the Bible's not just for adults, it's for everybody. God wants them to be checking their faith too, your kids, your Boulder students, all the way through. So what I wanted to do was create something that was more age appropriate and more easily accessible for kids that are younger. So we have 3 faith check Google Slides, which is what we've been doing our Google Classrooms in for the entirety of when we haven't been able to have the Rock. So if your kids have ever done these before, this is not a new platform for them. They understand how to use it. Probably they're using it in school too. And so it's a way for them to look at questions and kind of think about them for themselves. Now here's the thing. Most kids have about an attention span of a minute. Maybe a little more. And honestly, as adults, that's pretty true for us too.
I was going to say, Gwen, you know, yeah.
It's not just the kids, but for sure for kids, if we ask them to change a no to a yes, if it's not like an immediate, how do I do that? It's like gone. Right? And so what I wanted there to be is a way for them to immediately think about, how can I change this? So what I've created is videos. So each question, if you click yes, Pastor Dave talked about how if we say yes, what should we do? We should celebrate, right? If we're saying yes about something, we celebrate. So that's what they have too, is celebration videos. And then if it's a no, it's an instructional video of what you could do. How can you change this? What does this mean? If there's confusion about it. And there are age-appropriate videos from preschool, elementary, and Boulder students of ways that they can think about how they can change it.
And you know, I'm going to assure you guys, when Gwen first showed these to me, like, I was almost a little afraid to have this conversation today because you're done with the adult faith check guide at this point. You know, adults, I swear to you, because you get lost on this video page and all you want to do is get the incentivized dance parties after getting your yes. And, you know, how do people access this? Let's not take for granted they know where to find it.
That's a very good question. So if you are on our Rock or Boulder e-news guides, and if you're not and you have kids and Boulder students, you should be. I'm emailing them out as a part of our weekly check-ins. They're also on our webpage, on the Fellowship of Faith webpage. You can access them on our faith training section of our webpage, and especially under family. That's the family faith training is where you're going to be able to click on those links and get straight to these Google Slides. And really what we want is them to be able to do this themselves, but it would be great if you did this together as a family, right? So that you have an idea of what your Rock kid or your Boulder student might need help with. And maybe you'll find that they have the same things they need help with that you need help with, right? And so working through that together is not such a bad thing. For Boulder students, because maybe they don't care so much about celebration videos, although honestly, I'm with you, like I enjoy the celebration dancing videos. For their positive things, I found really really dumb, but they love them vines. For those of you who know, they're
Because if we can't slum in 2006 with a celebration on this, you know, I mean, we're living the best in life.
Right. So they're like 15-second funny videos, which is a celebration if you are in 6th through 12th grade. That's what they want to do. And so that's what you'll find for their celebrations. But you can see that as we go through, they get more advanced. So when we're talking to a preschooler, they only need 6 questions. But when you're talking to a bolder student, they're going to need a lot of the same questions that we do, right? So it goes all the way up.
And what I've loved about this, Gwen, is just the idea that, well, the primary place for spiritual formation is not here. It's at your home. And we're glad that you're here and this is an anchor point, but if you're relying on this alone, you're never going to experience what God has in mind. Parents, it's a huge responsibility to have kids. And so often we forget the spiritual responsibility, and you can use this as a tool. And I love just how you've integrated that, do it together, especially if you have preschoolers who need a lot of help. And I think, honestly, adults, you're going to probably get more out of the videos than your kids will at times, and they'll help guide you too. So, Gwen, I mean, any closing encouragements, any closing thoughts, or?
The only other encouragement that I have for you is if you get stuck, if you're doing this with a grandchild or a child, and you're like, because they're gonna come up with a question that you're like, what? Because they always do. And if you find yourself in that position, then reach out to us. Like, we're here to help, and we might also say what, but then we'll find a resource for you to help them really understand the questions that they're having, because they're gonna have questions as they're going through this. Why do we do this? Especially that why question, right? So really do reach out. We're here for you. I have my email address on there. You can always send an email to me, and I know Pastor Dave would also help you with whatever questions your kids may come up with. I'm sure they won't be new for you with your own kids. They ask why a lot.
They always get you with a good one, though.
They do. They really do. They come up
yeah.
with things you never think. And really, this is really supposed to be at the starting point, right? And that's what it is for us as adults, too, the beginning of the conversation. Not something you do once and then you're done with, but hopefully something that you continue to look back on and think on so that you can develop these new faith steps for them.
Well, Gwen, thank you so much for putting this together. I mean, honestly, guys, check it out this week, and let's give her a hand, all right? There we go. So, I would like to frame some things. Again, we jumped right into this, but I want to frame the spirit of all of what Gwen is talking about here, and adults, how it pertains to us. And I want to show you this same passage out of 2 Corinthians 13 that we've been looking at these past couple of weeks. And here it is. Give it to me on the screen if you would. Remember this from 2 Corinthians 13? While they get it up, I'm going to get it to you in the Message version. You read that out loud with me? Examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith. Test yourselves. And again, because I love how the Message puts this. Test yourselves to make sure that you are solid in the faith. Don't drift along taking everything for granted. Give yourself regular checkups. You need firsthand evidence, not mere hearsay, that Jesus Christ is in you. Test it out. And if you fail the test, do something about it. We're so burned by the word test, aren't we? We've grown to develop hives over the very word from school traumatic memories. We think about being tested today as something negative. But I think we forget the spirit of what it's always supposed to be. Just a way to see honestly where we're at, as a way to help us grow in some kind of way. These past 2 weeks, we've been doing these faith checks right here at FOF and encouraging you to do it at home. And each week, we encourage you to continue to hop on our faith training webpage and take the section for the week and practice this at home. And certainly now that you know explicitly how to do it with your kids. But I would like to go through this process again today. Let's put Acts 2 up on the screen. Let me show this to you, all right? Where it says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. where everyone was filled with awe. Many wonders and miraculous signs were done by the apostles, where it talks about the believers being together and having everything in common, and even selling their possessions and goods, giving to those where there was need. How every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts, breaking bread in their homes and eating together with glad and sincere hearts, and praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people, and the Lord adding to their number daily those who are being saved. It isn't comprehensive by any means, but it sure is a great summary, a great picture of what church, people of God, community with God is supposed to be. Every week we've been drawing on this to angle on a different aspect of our spiritual lives. Today we're going to talk about things like repentance, obedience. Faith is an action word more than an idea or a belief. The way we like to put it here is God's call for us to restart our lives daily. Have you ever wished for a restart? God actually invites us to restart our lives daily. And a restart doesn't mean that we'll be free of all consequences from the past, but it does mean we can start anew in the present. Every day he invites us to restart our lives with him. And so what I'm going to do this morning is just ask you a series of questions to help guide you through that process. Be honest with yourself. A good, honest no beats a half-hearted yes. Examine yourself against these and just seek to get a picture of where you're at with God today. So find your space. Find your space, close your eyes if you need to, and answer these. I feel closer to God today than a year ago. I'm more committed to Christ today than I was a year ago. On this next one, list these now. What sins are you struggling with in your life? And what others? And what others? Ask yourself this morning, am I able to accept God's forgiveness for me in these? And am I repenting of these? Beyond being able to accept God's forgiveness in these, are you able to forgive yourself for these? Ask yourself, do I repent and recommit to God daily? Am I actively seeking to be obedient to God? Am I taking new chances for God? Is there someone in my life who's holding me spiritually accountable? How'd you do? Want to hear something pretty cool? With God, it's okay to fail the test. It's not like mom who's going to yell at you, a teacher who's going to threaten you, a school system that's going to hold you back, a stigma or a judgment your class will put upon you. No, the unique thing about God is we come before him often as bigger failures than successes. And he loves us and works with us right where we're at. You know, maybe in the areas where you answered yes, rejoice in that. It's evidence of God working in your life. And the areas where you came up with a no or an I'm not sure, or the list was a mile long on the sins and very short on the chances and obedience. Well, come to God in that place and restart your life today. So I'd like to invite you to pray with me. I always like to start this process by confessing, admitting my own side in it, and coming to God in that way. If you'd like, pray this with me. Most merciful God, we confess that we are by nature sinful and unclean. We have sinned against you in thought, word, and deed, by what we have done and by what we have left undone. We have not loved you with our whole hearts. We have not loved our neighbors as ourselves. We justly deserve your present and eternal punishment. But for the sake of your Son, Jesus Christ, have mercy on us. Forgive us, renew us, and lead us, so that we may delight in your will and walk in your ways to the glory of your holy name. Amen. Merciful God, I am unspiritual, sold as a slave to sin. I do not understand what I do. What I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. No, the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Nothing good lives in my sinful nature. I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. When I want to do good, evil is right there with me. I delight in your law. But another law is at work within me, waging war against my mind and making me a prisoner of sin. A wretched person I am, rescue me from this body of death. And hear the words that follow. Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. For there is therefore now no condemnation in him. In his stubbornness, God sent his Son to die for you. And with resolute focus, he went to the cross and paid the price for all your sins, which means renewal with God starts today. Jesus, on the night of the cross, on the night that he was betrayed, took bread. He broke it and he gave it to his disciples and he said, "Take and eat, this is my body, it's given for you." He took a cup after supper, he gave thanks, he gave it to them and said, "Drink of this, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, shed for you for the forgiveness of all of your sins." And those amazing words, come and do this in remembrance of me.
heaven all around me, your power and your mercy, the greatness of your love. And I don't want to lose the wonder of being in your presence, knowing such a friendship, to be with you, my God. And everything I am, I throw into your hands. I just want my life to ever be entwined with you, tethered to your heart. I just want my soul to ever stand in awe of you, tethered to your heart. Oh, tethered to your heart. What more could I desire? What greater thing to treasure? I'm convinced there's nothing better than living in your love, caught up in the wonder of being in your presence, of knowing such a friendship, to be with you, my God. And everything I am, I throw into your hands. And I just want my life to ever be entwined with you, tethered to your heart. I just want my soul to ever stand in awe of you, tethered to your heart. Oh, tethered to your heart. Oh. Tethered to your heart. Tethered to your heart. Draw me closer, take me deeper. I wanna be where you are. I wanna be where you are. Draw me closer, take me deeper. I wanna be where you are. I wanna be where you are. Draw me closer, take me deeper. I wanna be where you are. I wanna be where you are. I just want my life to ever be entwined with you, tethered to your heart. And I just want my soul to ever stand in awe of you, tethered to your heart. Oh, tethered to your heart. Oh, tethered to your heart.
Thank you all for being here today, whether it's in person or live stream, although I'm really glad to see the weather's brought so many of you in person. So may God's immeasurable blessings be upon you, and please put your hands together. We've got one more song for you today. It is called 5 Songs After All. So let's be ready to make a joyful noise.
So clever. So clever. I would have never come up with that. So thank you. All right, we ready? Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back, streamers.
Hey, I have a question.
What's up?
Go in peace, serve the Lord. What's the next line?
Praise be to God.
Okay, that makes more sense. I thought it was thanks be to God. Like,
Oh.
finally, we're done.
No.
Oh my gosh, it was a little bit of a long service, but it was,
Amazing.
I gotta tell you, and I don't say this a whole lot. I do actually. Dave was spot on.
Well, he was
Spot
on fire.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's because he gave you the sermon notes, so he wanted to make sure he was on point. Otherwise, you'd say something to him.
No, so I was afraid he wasn't going to mention my favorite part in Isaiah 50, and that is God says to Israel, "Where's your certificate of divorce?" I was angry, and I left because I was afraid I was going to say something or do something that I would regret. And so you thought I left you, but where's their certificate of divorce? God doesn't leave us,
Never.
ever.
It's something great to remember, especially when we think he has left us, because he's always right there. And he's just waiting for us to realize that he is still right next to us.
He is.
Now, when one of my favorite things that Pastor Dave says is, let's unpack this. So when he goes
Let's unpack.
I never understand what the Bible's trying to tell me, ever. So when
Okay.
he's like, let's unpack it, I'm like, yes, I finally get to understand
Yeah.
what the Bible is telling me. So that is very happy to hear that phrase come out of his mouth today. So that was good.
Yeah. I took notes. I actually took notes.
You took a lot of notes. Also, you take notes in Sharpie, which I find interesting.
So I started, okay, so back here, we're in a really small space. And
Very
it's
small.
kind of dark. We have like this bright light shining on us, but really it's dark. And so I was using a blue pen, which is my favorite pen,
Oh,
and I couldn't read it. And my eyes are bad, so I use a
Gotcha.
Sharpie now.
makes sense.
During tax season, I work a lot of hours. And I have decided that this year, I created a playlist, and it's called Start the Day Right. And on my playlist, my first song that I listen to every single day since the beginning of February, every day I've started my day this way, is the song is called Revelation 19:1, and it's sung by the choir at the church that Kanye West goes to. And
The
it's,
one that he leads or the one he attends?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But anyway, and the entire song is the verse Revelation 19:1, and it's Hallelujah to God be glory and honor
Right,
and power.
I gotcha.
Okay. And then the very next song, all of this week, not knowing what the sermon's about, I've been listening to Chris Tomlin's song, and it's God, you are faithful. I will rest in your promises I will rest in your righteousness because all of your promises are yes and amen.
Yes.
And so all week, I've been singing this song every morning, multiple times throughout the day, about God's faithfulness. And then we come here on Sunday, and God's timing is just like,
Oh, yeah. He's on point,
God
as
is
always.
faithful.
We've got special guests.
We do have a guest.
Okay,
Hey,
I'll let him in.
I invited some friends over. We're going to have them come up.
guys.
Come on up, guys. Okay, somebody hop up here. And one of you hop up here. And we're going to see if we can see your faces. We can. So make your necks really, really tall. All right. You guys want to tell me your names?
I'm Ella. And I'm Sophia.
You're Sophia. And you guys are doing Lent in a... You guys are doing Lent in a box, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us what you did? And hold this up right by your chin.
Okay. Well, we did like a coloring prayer with our whole family at like breakfast time, and we used like markers and paper and just wrote like stuff down about like prayers for people and like things that we wanted.
Prayers for your family?
Yeah.
And other
our
people
friends,
too?
Yeah.
Yeah? And what colors did you use? Was it something in the box?
Yeah. Well, we used like we also did one of the things with the pictures,
Uh-huh.
like, and we each got some pictures, and we like were praying for like in like a Bible verse. We were like praying about like people and things that like, you know.
Very cool. And did you do it too?
Yeah, we did like this. There's a picture of this maze, and we used puffy paint, and we like squeezed it on the maze, and then when it dried, we used our finger and ran around in a circle and prayed, did a prayer.
Very cool. Are you guys looking forward to this week now?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for coming up.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
You guys, this Lent in a box is really cool. And if you still need a box, we still have time available. If you need a box, get a hold of Gwen at gjohnson@fellowshipoffaith.org.
Now, are they separate boxes per week?
No,
Or are they,
one
it's
box.
all one box?
One
straight?
box.
You know, they mentioned puffy paint 2 weeks now, and no one mentioned that they've eaten the puffy paint. So when we originally thought maybe we eat it,
Maybe it's edible. No.
I don't think so.
No. No.
There's a note here that we need to talk about. I want to make sure I get it in before. The lawn mowing team, as the weather is starting to get nicer, we are looking for volunteers to help.
We're on something like 23 acres.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's a
And
lot.
If we hire out people to do the lawn maintenance, it's something like $10,000, $12,000.
Wow.
So when we
That's
have volunteers
pretty.
sign up to do this, I mean, you are actually saving us. You're giving somebody a part-time salary, really.
And if I'm not mistaken, you do not do the whole ground.
5 acres watches.
Yes, exactly. You have little areas, so
And
please.
you're assigned a week, and you can come, as from what I understand, any day during the week.
Right.
And who did we get a hold of for that? I suppose it'd be Dave,
Yep.
maybe
Sarah, maybe.
Sarah.
Maybe. There usually is a sign-up sheet, but I have not seen that yet in
Dave
person.
gave us a note, but he didn't give us details.
Yeah, no details. We will. Sarah or Dave, yeah. We got to.
Sarah, okay.
Yeah, we'll get you more information about that next
Yeah.
week, too.
Hey, I also wanted to say, if you guys want us to pray for you, we are happy to do so. Give us a text. Text the word prayer to 815-240-0607, and we will pray for you.
Giving.
Giving. We have a giving page if you want to give.
Same thing as always.
And guys, if you're visiting, checking us out, don't
Yeah.
do that at all.
No-
We're happy
no
that you're
pressure.
with us. This is something between you and God, and
If you feel moved to give, this is the way to do it.
yep.
All right.
I had some more stuff I wanted to say about this sermon.
Neck sinew.
Next in
Neck sinew.
I'm stubborn.
So I didn't know that's what those were called.
We have people talking to us now. They're jealous of you guys.
Because they don't get to hear our show.
No, you have to go home and watch.
I'm glad they're not congregating over by here.
That would be weird.
Yeah, and then staring at us, because that
Weird.
would be very weird. But anyways, neck sinew. Sinew.
Neck sinews and bronze foreheads. God is flint. He's stronger.
Yep, always
Though
some
I feel
stronger.
like flint. Isn't that stone?
That, when he mentioned flint, I'm like, won't that break? I thought
So
that was.
maybe that's the whole point, is that God is flint and he breaks for you. He's still strong and he's going to be more stubborn than you.
That's a good connection.
But God's weakness is what actually brings you to. Oh.
Well, yeah, I don't
Maybe
know
not,
if
I
it's
don't know.
weaker, but that's what I was always under the impression of.
God is stubborn, or the servant is stubborn for God's plan, and God's plan is reconciliation with you.
That's a.
I just love it. I love it. I wanted to tell you guys the story of me. So Dave and I will be celebrating 25 years this summer. 25
How
years. I don't
exciting.
even understand how that happened. But
When's the date?
July 27th.
See? Good on your toes. I like it.
Our 10-year anniversary. So when we got engaged, we were in California. And we're like, on our 10-year anniversary, let's come back out here. We'll have a trip. It'll be so romantic. And life happens. And kids are born. And there's just no time. And you don't quite know this yet because you don't have kids.
Right.
You will. And it's... Anyway. And so on our 10-year anniversary, we kind of hated each other. We just did. He was mad at me. I was mad at him. He was probably right to be mad at me, and I was certainly right to be mad at him. But it's our 10-year anniversary, so we have to do something. We live up close to Wisconsin, so we went up to Lake Geneva for dinner. We went to a restaurant on the lake, overlooking the sun was setting. It was
Do you
just
remember what the
this-
restaurant was called, by chance? 'Cause I think I know what you're talking about.
It is the Boathouse.
I do not know what you're talking about.
It's right by the state park.
Okay.
It's kind of
Okay.
not right downtown. It's a little bit before.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But so we're sitting in this most romantic environment, and we're just like glaring at each other. And he's stubborn, and I'm stubborn. And we get home, and it's kind of like we ruined our 10th anniversary. And I want to stay married, and I love Dave, but our anger at each other just ruins things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we came to a point where we looked at each other and we said, I'm not letting go of my anger, but I'm letting it go. And Dave, said the same thing to me. And it's just kind of like, from there on, it's just like, all right, anytime something comes up, we're faithful to each other. And that's how God is with us. We might be butting heads with God with our bronze foreheads, but
Or pulling each other's beards.
He's faithful. I thought about that.
So did I.
I was very tempted to do that this afternoon.
Just pull on it. I don't think God and I will butt heads. We will just yank on each other's beards
Yank
the whole
on
time.
each other's beards, yeah.
But yeah, that's a great point, that reconciliation and all of that. It doesn't mean if you are angry with God and you fight with Him, doesn't mean that you have broken that relationship.
No.
That is all relationships have fights. Friendships, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife. Even with God, you'll have fights.
Yeah,
But
parents and
regardless,
kids.
you can always mend that relationship and come back to wherever you were before. Peaks and
And
valleys.
I'm going
peaks
to
and
disagree with
valleys.
that. You're not going to come back to where you were before. You're going to come back to it at a better place.
I see what you're saying.
Because you don't ever want to go back to
That's true.
weirdness.
I got
'cause
you.
After the weirdness, you're stronger.
I get you. Good point. Good
Yeah.
point.
So Dave read the passage. The Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. So when you feel like God is working and like, what are you doing? No, He's saving your life.
Right, exactly. When you feel like he's pulling you away from what you want,
Yeah,
you're like,
this doesn't make sense what you're doing, God. Oh, He's saving your life.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
You'll thank him later.
And then Isaiah 50:10 says, let him who walks in the dark, who has no light, trust in the name of Yahweh and rely on God. You guys, if you don't know God, you can trust Him. I was listening to Moody Radio,
Moody Radio?
right? 90.1.
I have no idea. So that's what I was asking. What?
I was listening to the radio, Christian station, and one of the radio announcers, the DJs, I don't know what they're called.
DJs
DJ?
would probably be better. Radio announcers, I like that better.
Anyway, she was saying, if you don't know God, then give your whole life to Him today and just let Him take over everything. And I had to stop and say, if you don't know God, don't give Him your whole life. If you don't know something, don't give yourself to it. But you know what you can do if you don't know God, if you don't have this relationship? So be like, hey, let's have coffee. Let's talk. That's a great place
Baby
to
steps.
start. Because you know what? Even if you don't know God, God knows you, and He's still faithful to you, even though you don't know Him.
That's a great point. You got to start somewhere. You can't just jump straight into it. Otherwise,
And if you jump all in, it's almost, what else will you jump into? It doesn't
right.
have
Yeah, it doesn't have that-
longevity.
exactly, it
If you're
doesn't
so
have that specialness to it.
wishy-washy that you can just be like, oh, I'm all in for this. Oh, I changed my mind. No, I'm all in for this. No. God is faithful, and He is consistent always, always, always.
totally.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Yeah. All right, I have one more thing, guys. Oh, no, two more things. First Wave is coming along. They have drywall up, and this is a funny story. And we have a really tall building inside, and so they put up the drywall and they mudded, and now they have to come in and sand everything. Instead of bringing in like scaffolding, Dave said that the people who were doing the mudding literally walked on stilts in order to mud up high.
On stilts?
4 foot, 6 foot tall stilts.
Like from a circus? That is incredible.
Yes, they're
I wish I could have seen that.
mudding on stilts.
Did they take video and put it on Facebook?
I don't know.
We should see.
Dave is not super tech savvy, so I'm not sure if he did.
I couldn't tell from last week.
Oh my gosh, it's
Trouble
awful.
with the clicker.
It's awful. And he does things at home. We're in the country, we have slow internet. And he does things at home and gets so irritated because it's supposed to work this way and it's not, and he doesn't know how to figure it out. I don't know. They also painted inside.
In First Wave? Oh.
And I stopped by midweek, and Dave was like, oh, proud of the paint, and look at this. And I got to tell you, I looked at the paint, and I couldn't even tell that it was new. And then when I realized, like, oh, yeah, of course it's new. And my point is, it looks so natural, like, oh, this is the color that it's supposed to be, that it didn't even seem new, even though it looks really, really good.
Right. You know what we should do? I don't remember the construction company's name, but we should give them a shout out on here because they're doing a
should.
fantastic job. And they're doing it very quickly, too.
Hey, Matt, ask Andrew what the construction company is.
Loberg?
Loberg. Great job,
Yeah,
guys.
fantastic.
They might be done in 2 weeks, and then an extra week to clean up and
Yep.
get their tools out. 3 weeks, guys.
So we're eyeing maybe Palm Sunday.
Maybe Palm Sunday.
Could be completely open to see.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
How exciting.
One more exciting thing. You guys, I don't know if it's okay for me to share this yet, but I am so excited that I can't contain
Oh,
myself.
yeah, this is the teaser that you were
I
talking
am
about
not
earlier.
a secret keeper. Do not entrust me with secrets. It's bad. Years ago, Dave and our friend Mark Chaffee were doing a podcast called Questions You Never Thought You Could Ask in Church. Did you hear any of those?
I don't know, not those specifically, but we've had them in here before.
Yeah, so every summer Dave does a series of questions, and they did a podcast. The podcast was phenomenal. People would text in, email in questions, and then Mark would ask Dave on the spot. Dave had no idea what was coming, and he would answer them. The podcast was phenomenal. Life happens, and it stopped happening, which was very, very disappointing because it was that good. They're resurrecting it.
That is exciting.
And so it's going to be Dave and he's asked me, and maybe you, I don't know if he asked you yet.
Not yet.
To ask questions. And so if you guys have questions about anything, it can be about life, it can be about church, it can be about the Bible, it can be about fellowship of faith. No question is off limits. Let us know. I don't know how to get questions to me yet. Maybe you can private message me on Facebook.
Yeah, that, or
I'll
I mean,
get 'em
you
that
can leave
way.
them in the comments too. We can come back to it, can't we? After the live
We
stream's
can.
over. Yeah. So if you want to
Okay.
leave them in the comments,
Anyway,
do
so
that
start
as well.
thinking about your questions. And it's not going to be a podcast. It's going to be a video series. And those videos then will be on Facebook Plus, FOF Plus.
FOF, yeah, FOF
on
Plus
the
that we talked
website,
about last
FOF
week.
Plus. We talked about last week. And he's looking to make maybe like 5-minute long videos. So anyway, I'm super excited to bring up these questions because anything goes.
Exactly.
It
That's
can-
the whole point.
It is. It is. And
is very
in the
exciting.
past, we've had people talk about, very in-depth questions and very specific questions about the Bible. We've also had people talk about very general questions, and it doesn't matter at what level you're on. Your question is a good question, and we don't back away from those. It can be a question about life, and
Well, anything you have, I mean, especially those of us who are new walking with Christ, you can ask anything you want that you might have questions about. And like Tina said, nothing is off limits. And this is a great way for you to kind of get a background on what we're all about and maybe understand what the journey is going to be like.
And it just builds trust among us, and it builds. There's people who've been Christians forever that, like, oh my gosh, I've been having that question for decades, and I wasn't brave enough to ask. So even if you think your question is silly, ask it, because there are people with the same questions. Years ago, so this was, Dave and I were first married.
Oh, that years ago then.
Years ago, it's like
20
25
years.
years ago. So I did not grow up in the Lutheran church.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't. And at we were at the seminary, and you kind of think pastor's wife should be part of the Lutheran church. She should be a member, right? So we were at a congregation there that we were assigned to, and we're going through, and I should probably take the membership classes. And I really struggled with it because I don't want to do something because I'm supposed to, but because I want to. And God was faithful in that too. And it was a cool story, not my point right now. But we had to take this membership class, and it was a group of people, maybe 15 of us, that ranged from pretty mature Christians to brand new Christians. And one of the guys asked a question, and he said, now this guy named Exodus, what did he do?
As in
The book of
so I
Exodus.
thought it was a person. I gotcha.
And so I shouldn't assume that you guys know. Exodus is a book in the Bible, and it's the story of Israel being slaves in Egypt and God getting them out of Egypt. They were exited
Yep. I was
out
gonna
of
say,
Egypt.
The exit of Egypt.
Exodus? They were Exoduses.
Exit, yeah.
Anyway, and it opened up discussion, and the pastor, not Dave, who was leading that group, you could see a shift in his eyes of, oh, okay, this is where we are. Let's talk about this. And we had phenomenal discussions to the point that 25 years later, I'm still thinking about it and still thinking about these guys. So all of that, ask your questions.
Like nothing's off limits, like we keep mentioning, and like Tina said, you never know when something like that's going to resonate with you for the rest of your life, and maybe help someone out someday.
Yes, and your kids, ask your questions. Like Gwen was saying, they have questions, and some of the kids' questions are so profound that as adults, I know my kids have asked me questions. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. You exactly. You say, I have no idea. Actually, yeah.
And write them down. We'll figure out by next week
we'll
where
figure
those
out a way,
questions should go.
a more confidential way too, in case you don't want everyone else to know your questions. So we'll let you guys know when we know.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to give a very special shout out to Steve, our worship director.
Hey, Steve.
Great service today, but he also told me that he goes back home to watch the show. And I just want to say thank you, Steve, and keep pushing, man. You're almost there.
There's a story there. You guys do not want to know. All right, I think we're set for the day.
I think that's it.
We'll see you guys next week. Don't forget communion, so be ready for that.
Yep, communion all the way through Easter.
Easter.
Man, I cannot talk today.
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah.
All right.
All right, take care, everybody.
Guys, have a great day.